Good evening, everybody. This is Martha Clark. I'm Martha Clark from the Canterbury Citizens.
Right into them.
And thank you, everyone, for coming out. It's not always easy to come out in the evening, especially in the winter. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the school board portion, and then we'll move on to the town candidates. And then there'll be time for questions after the school board, and we will have SAU 80 Superintendent Michael Tersey here to answer questions about a complicated warrant article. And I'll turn it over to Jim Miller, who's the moderator.
Thank you, Martha. So for those that are coming up to speak as candidates, or in the case of Superintendent Tersey, just have the mic like right here, and then everyone will be able to, and use your outdoor voice. You have one. So thank you for coming to the, 99th annual forum. Seems like there've been a lot of them. This is a good crowd, which shows the interest in our democracy and in our town and school district, and we really appreciate it. So each person that speaks will have 4 minutes for their, if it's a candidate, so you're in there a little different. But for each candidate, you will have 4 minutes within which to say a little bit about you and why you're running, what you would like to see out of the office you're running for. All of the town candidates are unopposed. We haven't heard of any massive write-in campaigns. So those will hopefully be a little easier to explain why you're doing what you're doing. But for the 4 school board candidates, it'll be very good to hear from them as to sort of how to distinguish them one from another and why they would want your vote. We have 2 from Belmont and 2 from Canterbury, and we have to pick one of each on election day. So we're going to start off with our superintendent, who's going to talk about Article 8 on the school ballot, and talk briefly about it, and then see if there are any questions. And if there are questions, I will bring the mic to those that have questions. You can be down here, or you can be up here.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm Michael Tersey. I'm the superintendent of schools. I'm in my 9th year here in the school district. I absolutely love this school district. It's a great place, great towns to be part of. And I really appreciate Brenda reached out to see if I could come and explain Article 8, which is a petition warrant article. I'm just going to be up front and let you know it's a little awkward for me to explain it because it's a petition warrant article that the school board did not put together. But I'll be here to answer any questions that you possibly can. So I did let the author of the article that was amended at the deliberative session know that I was going to speak on this article here in town. Again, through transparency, and let people know that my purpose for being here as a petition warrant article, even though it wasn't developed by the school board or the school district. So I just wanted people to know that. But I do appreciate your time this evening. So Article 8, I'm hoping that people received in the mail the voter's guide. You have a copy of that. Article 8 is our last article on our ballot. It was a petition warrant article that was drafted by a community member in Belmont. The petition had approximately 58 signatures on it. That was put on, we were discussing at our public hearing. And then at the deliberative session, it was amended from the original draft of the petition warrant article, and then it is now on the ballot as it was amended at the deliberative session. And what that warrant article, if you'd like, I'll read it to you. If you don't have the voters yet. So Article 8 reads, shall the SAU school district adopt an official budget committee, although this would be unnecessary and redundant layer of budgeting effort, who shall be elected with elections to be held in 2026 as follows. 2 members, one from Belmont and one from Canterbury. For a 1-year term, 2 members, one from Belmont and one from Canterbury for a 2-year term, and 3 members, one from Belmont, one from Canterbury, and 1 at large for a 3-year term. 1 member of the school board shall also serve on the budget committee. So that is the petition warrant article as drafted. You'll see on the voter's guide that there was as amended, but you will see that on the ballot. On the voter's guide, you'll also see that if that article passes, there's potential that we, as a school district, would have to employ our district attorney to see how we would actually be able to pull that off, quite honestly, as a vote, because it's not in line with the RSAs that dictate official budget committees for a cooperative school district. And it's really the configuration in that article that's off. So we'd have to determine the best way to try and, if it's voted in, if it's passed, the best way to implement the intent of the vote. So I just wanted to make sure people are aware of that. That's why we put that on the voter's guide. So there's a big difference, quite honestly, between an advisory budget committee and an official budget committee. We currently have an advisory budget committee every year when we do our budget. And that's been in place for, I believe, 8 years. Approximately 9, I think it was the first year that I was here. So I want to say 9 years that we've had an advisory budget committee. Every year we send out notices for people to submit a letter of intent to be part of this advisory budget committee. And we have had an advisory budget committee, and it's varied anywhere from 3 people. I think the most that we have, I would say around 6 people that can be from Belmont and Canterbury that sit with the school board throughout the entire process, starting from day 1 when I present the recommended budget to our school board. This advisory budget committee sits at the table, discusses their opinions and their thoughts as we go through, sometimes line by line of the budget. And then throughout the process, they provide feedback on an advisory, as an advisory committee. However, they do not have a vote on the budget. And you also don't see what that advisory budget committee's recommendation might be on the ballot. So they are strictly advisory without the capacity to vote on a budget. An official budget committee for a cooperative school district is an elected position. And the process works that the school board then put their budget together as they normally would without an advisory budget committee. It's just the school board that puts their budget together. And at the end, when the board has decided on the budget that they want to move forward, their proposed operating budget, it's then handed to the official budget committee that's been elected by the voters. And it becomes the budget committee's budget. It's no longer the school board's budget, it's the budget committee's budget. And that is what goes on the ballot as the budget committee's budget. I believe you're familiar with that in the town of Canterbury, because the town of Canterbury has a budget committee. The town of Belmont also has an official budget committee. Was Canterbury's advisory?
Yes.
I apologize for that. So then you're very familiar with what we currently have in place as a school district. And the process works out well, and that's the major difference, is that the advisory budget committee does not have the capacity to vote on it. The official budget committee does vote on it, and that's what moves forward as the budget that goes on the ballot, particularly after the deliberative session, because it, as you well know, it can be amended at the deliberative session. Yeah, please jump in anytime if you have a question.
Does the budget committee at that point only get to vote it up or down, or do they get to adjust it however they want?
It becomes the budget committee's budget. They can adjust it any way they want. And there is a school board member that does sit on that budget, the official budget committee, The RSA that dictates, and I'm not an attorney nor am I going to pretend to be this evening, but I do know the RSA, and the RSA states specifically the configuration of the official budget committee for a cooperative school district is the same makeup as the school board, which is 4 members from Belmont, 3 members from Canterbury, and then a member from the school board. So that's where you see the difference on the warrant or the petition warrant articles, the configuration of the budget committee. So to get to your point, once the school board hands the budget over to the budget committee, it becomes the budget committee's budget to increase it, decrease it, and have at it as they will. Other questions? Randy?
Yes, my name is Randy Johnson. My question is of my own reflective thoughts and not of my position on the Shaker Regional School Board. But I did do 3 years on the school board, and 2 years of which were from a committee chaired that was via petition warrant article. And what I have learned is that education funding is complex. There are legal requirements. Like there are right to know requirements. This committee would need to be educated. They would need to have legal guidance, and they would need to have secretarial services. Who pays for that?
That would come out of the school district budget.
So if that wasn't included with this, it would just be added money that we had not planned for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Question in the back, please.
2 questions. One is, how much impact does the advisory group have with your process and your 9 years of experience?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
I take their opinions very seriously because not everyone sitting around the table are educators. However, I highly respect the opinions of our community members, and I know the school board does as well. So that's the purpose of that advisory budget committee, to take opinions from people that they wouldn't normally have these conversations with, but also have the pulse on the community that they are representing. So I highly appreciate our advisory budget committee input, as well as them being present throughout the whole process.
Are you aware of any school district in New Hampshire that has this type of budget committee separate from the school board, and how does it work? Does it work?
I can't answer whether it works or not, but yes, I'm familiar with it. I've worked in a district that had a official budget committee. Question over here.
Yeah, by adding this, would the time frame for the whole budget process be extended, or would it be added on top of the current time frame?
That's a great question. It cannot be extended. We are bound by statute for the timeline we have as a SB2 school district. So we have deadlines that we have to meet, so it would not extend that in any way whatsoever. It adds another layer of meetings and another committee. We start our budget usually midsummer, and I present a recommended budget to our school board, our first meeting in October. And the process works all the way through there, where we have our public hearings in January and our deliberative in February, and then we vote in March. It does not change that timeline at all. Good questions.
Any other questions?
Anyone?
John, I just want to clarify, it could extend the timeline if you started the process sooner. You just can't change the end of it. I think you can start the process sooner.
That's
But the
correct.
complaint has been from administrators that you're starting the budget so early, it's hard for them to predict a year and a half in advance. It's hard enough already for them to do it in September, let alone if you start, in January.
Yeah, we could start earlier, and the thought process in putting a budget together, we start early. We're even thinking about it now, but it's very difficult to predict, as people know that have been part of the budget process, even on the town side, predict what your costs potentially are going to be a year out. So it does make it challenging, but we make it work. Make it work. Yes.
Just a clarification for me. How does the school board look? Should we put this committee in place?
If this committee goes into place, and I'm gonna think that your question about how the school board would look, it does not change the configuration of the school
Well,
board.
in terms of what they do, their work.
Their work, we would still continue with our same budget process. The difference being is that the school board member that is appointed to the official budget committee now sits with this budget committee and goes through the whole budget process basically again with the budget committee. But it doesn't change the process in general of what our school board will go through. And we have a very well-oiled process that we've been working on for years. Does that answer your question? So, thank you.
So, Julie Duganey, so an elected budget committee is not part of hearing the school board's deliberations in the budget process. Is that accurate?
Only if they opt to be in the public during those meetings, but they do not sit around the table like our advisory budget committee does throughout the whole process. But they can be there for the public to hear the deliberations.
To what extent is would the budget committee be redundant with the school board? Like how much involvement does the school board have in the budget? And are these things, is the proposed budget committee superfluous, or are there duties different from each other?
The duties are very different. Our school board duties are very different than an official budget committee. It's a second part of the process because the school board has the responsibility of putting together the budget that they're going to put forward as their proposed operating budget. It starts with the superintendent recommending a budget. I work with all the district administrators who work with all the teachers and staff in the district to put together a budget. I present a recommended budget to the school board. At that point, it becomes the school board's budget, and we deliberate over, and we talk about, we break it down to $9.99 sometimes. We get really specific on that budget. It's the school board's budget. Once they're comfortable with it, they would vote as a recommended proposed operating budget, and then it goes to the budget committee. And then they deliberate over that budget, particularly with, I would be around the table, and there would be a school board member that's appointed to that budget committee to answer any questions. So it's a second stage of the budget process.
But is it redundant? That was one of the questions.
Well, I'm not privy to answer that question.
But I will.
Bob's going to answer that question for me.
For those of you that don't know, I was invited to join the budget committee for the school district this past year. So this was my first experience of going through that process as an advisory budget committee member. It made me really, really glad that I was a selectman for 13 years because the school budget is really hard. If you think the town budget is tough, the school budget is exceptionally difficult. And what I would say about this proposal to add another layer in between the people who are responsible for the outcome, i.e. our school board and our superintendent and our staff, I really object to that idea. I feel very strongly, and I feel the same way on the town level, that those who are responsible for the outcome need to be the ones who own and control the input. And I think that if you add an official budget committee, you've added an extra layer in between the people who are responsible for what really happens, okay, and the outcome. And so I know as a town I wouldn't want to be a selectman in a town that had an elected budget committee, right? Because if you're going to be responsible, then you really do deserve the control. It was mentioned many times in the deliberative session that, an extra set of eyes. Well, we have many sets of eyes. So you have a superintendent and a business administrator and all the department heads within the school district already. You have the school board and you have an advisory budget committee. So there's a large number of eyes on the budget already. The other thing that folks should understand is it's not like there's a miracle formula out there solving the cost of education in our state, right? We have 85% of that school budget is basically locked in and unchanged, right? So you can really only play with the 15%. And the locked-in part is the collective bargaining agreement, major transportation contracts, and all the state and federal requirements for delivering education. So it's not like there's a magic solution out there that any extra group is going to do. So I really urge that everyone to be
That's it, that I don't see any benefit to adding another official, less informed layer that doesn't have responsibility for the outcome to this process. It's hard enough now.
I came to Canterbury in 1971, and we have had an advisory budget committee in the town ever since, and it's worked really well. I'm a member, have been, I was a selectman, and it worked well. I striving to better off we know as well. That's what Shakespeare said. Don't trouble.
Appreciate that, Art. Anyone else before we get to the candidate questions? Yes.
Would an official advisory budget committee have power to basically slash requests that slash from the budget, requests from teachers who see what supplies and things that they need? I know that teachers submit their requirements, what they think they're going to need for the following year. But would an official budget committee have the power just to say, no, you can't have that? We're going to cut that because that's not required by law.
Yeah, that's a good question, Judy. So the school board's budget is then given to the official budget committee. They can cut it, and sometimes they increase it. I know that some people think that a budget committee is specifically there to cut, but there has been instances where a budget committee has said, maybe I think you need more money in this line. So to get to your point, yes, they can increase it or they can decrease it, and it becomes their budget once it's handed over to the school board. So yes, to answer your question.
I have two final questions. The first one is, can they decrease it below the default amount? And the second one is, you said there were 58 signatures on this. Were any of them from the town of Canterbury?
So first question, can they cut it below the default? There's specific percentages, I believe. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what those are. I do not believe you can go below the default, because default is specific to an SB2 cooperative school district. So I do not believe so, but I cannot confirm that to answer that question. The second part of your question, just ask it again, please.
I said, you said there were 58 signatures?
Yes, they were all Belmont community members because it wasn't circulated through Canterbury. So I'm not sure if it was circulated through Canterbury, if there would be signatures on it. So it was circulated through Belmont and handed it in the day that it was due.
Arnie Alpert, regardless of who is responsible for preparing the budget, don't the voters get to vote it up or down?
That's absolutely correct, Arnie.
And so what happens if the budget gets voted down?
If a budget in an SB2 cooperative school district voting process gets voted down, we go to a default budget. Okay, we go to a default budget.
Can you just say a sentence about what is a default budget?
So default budget is our budget that includes all contractual obligations, as well as really any item that we have consistently budgeted for every year, but it does not include any type of one-time costs. And I think Bob touched on this. So our budget overall, over 80% of that budget is contractual obligations. So you're talking about even more than 80%, around, I'm going to say it was around 82, 83%. So you're talking about 17% of your budget that you have type of control over.
It's
a great question. One last question.
Yeah, good. Last one. The default budget is about the same as the budget, right? So, right, the difference between the budget and the default budget.
Yeah, our difference between the proposed operating budget and our default budget is a little over $120,000.
Yeah, that's $29 million.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Correct. Thank you. Jim, if you don't mind, I'll put a plug in. If you are on your way out, I brought some of our school district annual reports for people to take home. If you really want to get a good read on some of the, I should say, the great things that are happening in our school district, that annual report is a great opportunity to see what we have going on in our district. So I really appreciate everyone's time this evening. I appreciate being here. I said I love being part of this community, and I appreciate your time. The annual reports are right in the back.
No.
Share.
Great. All right, wow, thank you, folks. I'd like the 4 school board candidates to please come up to the stage. Yeah, school, why don't you go that way? It's more fun. I feel like actors coming out. There's no curtain anymore. All right, so we're gonna, well, if you want to have your name seen, that's how it's gonna work. So whoever is talking, just put their name like that, and then that. All right, and so I'd like to have the Belmont candidates go first, and then the Canterbury candidates, and then the questions, and we'll do it in alphabetical order by last name. So, Anne, this is your first one. You have, let me explain so everyone knows out there in TV land. You have 4 minutes per candidate to, again, say in total who you are and why you're running, what you hope to accomplish. There will be a yellow sign coming up when 3 minutes have elapsed, so you have 1 minute left. And when the gift wrap one comes up, you know your gift of time has ended. All right, and so we're going to do 4 minutes apiece for the 4 of you, and then we will open it up to questions. Not endless questions. Unless you want to be here, I don't mind. You can be here as late as you want. All right. Oh, you can yield your time to the next person. That's always appreciated. Anyway.
Jim, I'm sorry, can you clarify what positions are open and how many are running?
Yes, so there are 2 positions open, and there is a position that is for Canterbury residents, and there's a position for Belmont residents, yes? But we all vote for both positions. So that's why we wanted to help get to know the Belmont candidates as well as our hometown candidates. So, hold the microphone really close.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ann Cheshire. I'm from Belmont. And the reason why I'm running is because after I graduated with my master's degree from UVA, Virginia, I spent 45 plus years working in the public schools as a speech language pathologist. I've sat with parents, special ed parents, at an IEP meeting, anxious about their child, and typically they hear only the bad stuff. Your child needs this, your child needs this. I sit on the same side of the table, so they realize that we are a team. It's not them versus us. I have witnessed regular ed teachers and the challenges that they face. With so many kids, all different skill levels. Sometimes they even are English speakers, second language speakers, different behaviors, and even a year's gap in between the first oldest child and the youngest child in the class. So they had many challenges. I have appreciated all the challenges that the special ed teacher has with behaviors in the classroom, in her classroom. Because sometimes the special ed kids have the most behaviors. They're frustrated about their own challenges, trying to read or trying to communicate. And so they act out in behaviors. Or it could be of a family situation. And I have also worked with communities, like the preschools. I've gone out to help them. And this is why I feel that I am qualified to run for the school board, because I have seen the day-to-day operations in the schools. And unless you're there full-time or regularly, it's different. If you just pop in for a visit, it's not quite the same as getting in there at 8 o'clock and leaving at 4 if you're lucky, or 6 if you have extra special ed paperwork to accomplish. So that was my main reason. Another reason is because Sean has worked hard for 16 years on the school board. And maybe it's time for new ideas, new challenges, new blood on the school board. That's my other. My priorities. It's hard to know the priorities because, for example, I went to the last school board meeting that was here in Canterbury, and I got a chance to visit your school. And I picked the right time and the right date because that was the time that the kids came and they talked about their clubs. And I was a little confused, and I thought maybe the clubs was the after-school program. So I asked them a question. I said, how often do you meet? And all these kids were like, oh, yellow card. All these kids were like, oh. And I loved seeing all the excitement and the enthusiasm that they had for their clubs. So we want to continue that enthusiasm for learning. My priorities, I'd say the first one is financial management. If you read a lot about homelessness, a lot of it is sometimes based on poor financial management of the family. When I worked in Nashville for 19 years, I had worked at one of the inner city schools, and about 85% of our kids were free or reduced lunch. And so a group of us got together and read a book on poverty. When people are in poverty, they tend to think of the here and now. I have money, I'm going to spend it now. I'm going to get that big, huge TV. I'll worry about the rent later on. So the good financial management from preschool through high school, we can improve life. Thank you. Thank you.
Hopefully this is close enough to my mouth without touching. Hopefully I don't get wrong by it. But you have colors on there. So my name is Sean Embry. I have been on board since 2009. I filled a vacant position. In that time, I remember very vividly interviewing for a school board position in a public session of the school board meeting. It was very nerve-wracking. I did that, filled the position, and then I've been running ever since. I work at the University System of New Hampshire. I've been involved in education since I graduated from Keene State 25 years ago. So I've been involved in education forever. You know, my wife's a teacher. 2 kids I've gone to the district. My youngest son is graduating this year. So the reason I'm running is, one, I get this question asked often enough that, how do you like it? Are you going to run again? What do you think? Do you think you're going to run? And my comment has always been, thank you, Alex. My response to running has always been, I don't want to be that person that wakes up on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month and says, oh, there's another school board meeting tonight. I've never hit that point. I enjoy it. I feel, even after all these years, I still learn something every time I go to a meeting. I take pride in the fact that I show up for meetings. I think I've counted 5, maybe 6 times I've missed a meeting in 16 years. If you don't go, if you don't take part in the meetings, I don't know why you're there. And so I'm very proud of that. I think a couple big things is, one, we all know public education, I think, is taking a hit, both nationally and in the state. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of changes in the next 3 to 5 years. So I want to be involved in that. I feel like I have knowledge, I feel like I'm a valued member of the board, and I think I can contribute to that. We're seeing it at the university system with cuts, and I don't want to get to the point where the education shaker takes it ahead. So those are the big things. There are some other things that I'm interested in talking about. Public relations and getting more information out to the community. I talked a little bit about that last night. Trying to get folks that aren't involved in the schools more information about what's going on in the schools. We have a lot of taxpayers in Canterbury and Belmont that do not have kids in the schools. And I don't know how they get their information. I want to make sure that's information we provide so that they have a more informed opinion of our district. Thank you.
Really close.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Right up there. Outdoor voice.
My name is Caitlin Fain. I'm a resident here in Canterbury. I work for the University System of New Hampshire, and also like Sean, we've been seeing budget cuts at the state system. I've been watching things here with our neighboring districts and seeing how some of the neighboring districts are overspending their budgets. I think we need to look at our budgets here and make sure that we're not overspending our budget as well. I have an interest in grant funding. I think we need to be looking at creative ways to fund our school. We need to be partnering with our local nonprofits, partnering with local businesses. Also keep in mind that the school board members that you elect during this term will be working on the budgets during a season of collective bargaining for our teachers. Our teachers, there will be a percentage given to them for raises, absolutely well-deserved. What we want to maintain is a balanced budget. We don't want to be cutting things for our students. So I think I would like to bring to the board fresh ideas on how to get alternative funding to keep our property taxes reasonable, but also maintain a quality education for our kids. I've got 3 kids in this school district, 2 that attend Canterbury Elementary, one who will be attending Belmont Elementary for preschool. My father also lives in Belmont. He's a senior, he's retired, he lives on a fixed income. So I see both sides of this coin. We need to keep our property taxes reasonable, and we need to provide a quality education for our kids. It's very, very important. I want to help our board maintain our school district and keep this a great community for everybody. Thank you.
Just making sure.
You can fix it on.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Oh,
Not too loud? Okay. My name is Edgar Rivera. If you've been on Facebook or you've come to some of the meetings, you've probably noticed me for the past 2 years videotaping the board meetings for the school district and the board meetings for the select board and some planning board meetings depending on the schedule conflict. And through those 2 years, I've sat behind the camera, just watched, stayed quiet, not commented too much until recently. But just listening and watch what was going on through our town and our school district. Obviously, our taxes comprise of both parts, and we know that we live in a small town that is very heavily part-time government, that at the same time is coming to a change, right? Any small change in a part-time government of ours is going to mean increases for the town budget. And at the same time, at the school district level, this past year, I was part of the advisory committee for the budget. I obviously came to every single meeting, sat through it, got back and forth with the school board regarding where we should aim the budget for, and knowing the fact that recently this year we had that big increase in our taxes, and actually the school district or Canterbury put about $220,000 to lower our taxes, and our select board put $500,000 to lower the taxes for where I live, and reduce the taxes for about $120. So come next year, you're actually going to receive the actual increase that you're supposed to have received this year, have those funds not being put in to lower the taxes. So that's one of my biggest concerns, is that I care about the community of Belmont, I care about the community of Canterbury. I moved here for that purpose because I like small town communities, I like the camaraderie that comes with it, and I don't want to see our community be pushed out because, our taxes are just keep increasing without solutions being done, okay? As I've sat behind the camera, I've watched how there's problems that are come up to the board, and I feel that they're being ignored. I've seen teachers in meetings, they're out there on the YouTube channel that I have. They're speaking up about the problems that they have, and they literally said in the meeting that when they were doing their collaborative sessions, their concerns were literally ignored by being placed and then clicked off, so the conversation doesn't even address it. Okay, I think that's a big problem that we really need to fix in our school district, and also when it comes to students and parents, right? They are the priority here, in which we need to try to keep our community. And what is happening in the last 4 or 5 years, we're losing around 30 students a year, okay? If you're not aware, our funding that comes from the state is based on the number of students that we have. If we keep losing students, we get less funding from the state, which means more taxes from the residents of Canterbury, which is something that should not be happening. So I'm really concerned about the budget as far as where it's at right now in other parts of the school district that I want to address, and hopefully somebody asks a question about it. And my time is about to end any second now, but again, I have 5 kids in the school district, 2 in the high school, 2 middle school, 1 in Canterbury.
All right, so we'll open it up to questions. If there are questions for all 4 candidates, relative to all 4, then each one will have a minute to answer. And if it's to a specific candidate that's running, let's go with 2 minutes because we are going to start running up against time. All right, so we'll start out
Jim,
with a question.
could you put the lectern down just so
Oh,
we can
yes.
see people's lives? Thank you.
Good idea. Is that better?
Thank you.
Oh, that's okay.
Jim, can you ask everyone to please say their name before they speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
In 4-H fashion, both the questioners and the answerers. And I'm Jim Miller. Yes, first question.
I'd like to ask all 4 candidates what their views are on Article 8 that's going up for vote.
And candidates, that's Judy Nelson.
Are they opposed to Article 8? Which Article 8, I'm assuming everybody knows because it's discussed.
So 1 minute apiece.
I've heard different opinions about Article 8. At first, I was totally against it because it's like somebody coming into your household and saying, I'm going to do your budget for you. And they don't have a clue of what you need or what you want or what you do. But then, I don't know, then you have people that come and they have no clue of how the schools work. And they're doing your budget. So I would say, I think the school board can do their own budget and be good at it.
So I'd like to copy what Mr. Stevenson said earlier and just reiterate all that, but I would say from my own mouth, I along with, I believe the full board voted against the Article 8 petition warrant article. I would say we've been through this before over the years, and we've made amendments to how we operate. And one of them was the advisory budget committee. We had complaints, we created that advisory budget committee. We had some good participation, maybe 6 people early on. Now we get about 3 if we're lucky, maybe 4. We've tried to increase transparency. Edgar has certainly helped with that, but we also stream our meetings. We've tried to allay the concerns that were raised by having a budget committee in an attempt to kind of ward that off because we didn't think we needed that. So I think we've done a good job over the years of trying to make things better for those that want to know what's going on, increase transparency, and all of those things.
Hi, my name is Canterbury. I think this is a difficult position to be in. I think especially this year, kind of sitting in, watching the current school board work, I think they've created a balanced budget. I think that our advisory budget committee is also doing a great job. I'm not sure that the extra level or that the extra committee is going to be helpful. I know that it was mentioned that there were extra costs associated with this committee. I'm not sure that that's a responsible way to be spending our money. I think we need to work with the school board and the advisory budget committee that we have in place. There's transparency there. And if somebody was very concerned, you can absolutely submit a Freedom of Information Act request on any additional information you may need.
All right, my name is Edgar Rivera. I think it's a very sad point that we are in this position. I believe in the democratic process, which means that the petition came in, it stayed, and everybody gets to vote on it. The problem with it, like the superintendent said, is that when it was amended with the inappropriate language that's going to create a reason for our attorney to get involved, whether it should be implemented or not. If he had the actual language that comes from the actual law, he would have left it out to the vote. But we could actually be facing a lot of costs now if it actually does pass. I don't think it's a good idea. I seriously believe that if we elect people into a position and we have a board that's supposed to have responsibility, it should be accountable to the people, and we should hold our elected people accountable for what is happening to our towns and the budget and the things that are going on in the school district.
Other questions? Yes.
I'm Don Filler. Hi, Edgar.
Polly, you'll be next.
Oh, sorry. Did you call on me or Polly? You're up.
You go ahead.
I'm
and
next.
then
Okay. So my question is for each of you. If our Department of Education should be cut at the federal level, what is that going to do to school boards around the country, and are you prepared to deal with whatever you have to deal with? I don't know how much more time it will take. I don't know what it's going to do, but how, are you prepared to deal with that?
Yes, and about 2 weeks ago, the NH Fiscal Institute held a webinar and talked about the governor's budget. And we have in New Hampshire a three-stage process and to actually come up with the budget. One of the problems that we're facing for education is that she has set it up so that some of the education funds ends up in the general fund, which can literally disappear. And if the Department of Education gives this member, and obviously it's going to probably take some time for those funds that are supposed to come to the state before we get them, and we're going to be faced with a lot of problems that I think we need to be prepared for. And as someone that has watched the school district and how it works, I think that I am ready to have a lot of tough conversations about how we're doing things that we can change and adjust for the moment until we get those funds.
My name is Caitlin Fain. I really want to press that our community is a rural community. I don't think that we are accessing all of the resources that are available to our community currently. Things have been changing pretty drastically, pretty rapidly. I know there's going to have to be some tough decisions that are made should federal funding be cut, state funding be cut. I think we need to have a plan. We need to be creative. We need to look at partnering with our local nonprofits. We need to have a plan in place. I believe that as a board, we would be able to do that if we had the right knowledge of what was available to us. If we sent representatives to speak up at a state level for our school district, I believe we would be able to do that.
So, from a federal level, obviously my concern is funding, but then the trickle down effect to the state. I have concerns just at the state level as far as where the money is going and the funneling of money that is going away from the public schools to voucher programs and private Catholic schools, homeschooling and all that. I think there's still a lot to be determined regarding the federal stuff. I don't want to get too political. I could go on for a very long time, but as much as that is happening, I'm just as much more concerned about the state level, because that's going to have, I think, a quicker ramification for us as far as definitely funding and what we receive from the state as well.
I like to think positive for the future, and I hope that cutting all the big-time staff and administrators down at the Department of Education will allow more money to the state and to us. But in the meantime, I don't want to wait till catastrophe happens or good times happen. I would like to see creative new ideas like advanced placement classes, can do research for different kinds of grants that are available from different foundations, companies, etc. And have our advanced placement classes do the research and even do the first draft for these grants that we are applying for. That would be good practical knowledge for their future careers or just great financial understanding, and they would be learning as well as helping their township out.
Great. Polly.
Okay. I have a comment real quick. Can we move forward so that?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yes. No. Yes. All right. I can see everybody. Yeah, don't get too close.
All right, so Mr. Rivera, I appreciate the fact that you brought up this idea of, or the fact that we are losing students. And I work at the high school, just so everybody knows I work at Belmont High School. I would agree with you on that we are losing students. And so my question to all of you, and I don't think that's a good thing, I agree. I would like to see more of our students back in our district. But my question for all of you, it's kind of a double, two-edged question, like why do you think that's happening? And what are some of your ideas about how to retain and keep students in our district, and how would you work it for all of you? And I can start with you if you want, because you brought it up, but it doesn't matter to me.
Sure. Yes, so sorry, your question was what should we do?
Yeah, about like, why do you think that's happening, and what should we
Yes,
do?
From talking to a lot of parents, I know at least 5 students that left the school district last year, and I talked to the parents, and a lot of their reasoning was because the issues that they were coming to the teachers with and to their administrators were not being addressed. And class choices is also very limited because we have a 4-class schedule. And so it's very easy for a student to get blacked out because the class gets filled up, and it's very hard to do it classes that way. And then just the problems that they are facing with the current grading system that we have, the 1 through 4, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but we actually lowered the level for classes because we were having so many students fail classes. I don't think that's a good idea. I think programs like this past year, we're trying to put in a robotics program that's going to be district-wide and competition only at the middle school and the high school, clubs at the elementary schools. I think it would attract people that left programs like that. And this is a small amount of money that we're having to pay for compared to how many students are leaving every year.
I believe there's probably a lot of reasons why families would decide to pull their kids from public schools. I think we definitely need to explore those reasons, talk to those families who decided to seek out alternative education for their kids. And then as a board, we need to come together and talk about ways that we can make our school or our district more attractive. What were those things that those families, the reasons why those families chose to seek out alternative education, and what can we do as a district to bring those kids back? How can we make our education system work for everyone?
As far as why they're leaving, I guess I would also point out that that is not a Shaker-specific thing. We're seeing that across the state. Definitely not just in our district. I would say, as far as bringing students back in or retaining those students, I agree that we need to make our district as attractive as possible. We need to provide as many opportunities, whether it's educationally or co-curricular. I mean, I think at some point there's a level at which you can't support it. You don't have kids for, this co-curricular or that sport. But I think that's one major thing. I would say, I said this the other night, like I'm a competitive person. I want to have the best test scores in the state. I want to be the most envied school in the state. And I do think that's something we can't just sit idly by and just keep doing what we're doing. I know we talked about this as a board, but school choices, it's coming. I don't think there's much we're going to be able to do. And we need to make ourselves attractive because I think I want those students outside of our district looking at us and being jealous of things.
We have 2 sons, and when our sons were at high school age, they're now in their 40s, but when they were high school age, we put them in private school because of our concerns about discipline in the high school. This was down in Nashua. We have 4 grandchildren now who are in middle and high school age. 2 are in private school, 1 is homeschooled, and 1 goes to the upper grade of the elementary school. And so it's challenging nowadays because of the online bullying and discipline, and I don't know that much about Belmont High School in particular, but I would be concerned and I would check into why they feel that it's necessary to leave. Is it discipline? Is it bullying? Whatever the case may be.
Any other questions? Yes.
So we've talked a lot about funding and funding being cut, but along with those conversations at the state level, they're also looking at lowering what schools are required to offer. On the chopping block are arts, music. It is anything that's pretty much not English, math, and I think gym. Financial literacy is on the list. So if it comes down to it, and there are mass funding cuts needed, how are we going to retain those things when those things are no longer required? Because that's what makes well-rounded students, the opportunities, the computers classes, the technology, all these things that they have now that we offer, and most of them are required. When those are no longer required, are you guys going to commit to still offering those types of classes when funding gets cut? That's my question, Jen.
Go ahead, 1 minute each.
The one that strikes me the most is the financial literacy. Because I was reading tonight about the homelessness, which I mentioned earlier, and that's a major cause of homelessness, is just not being aware of finances, not being able to budget, not understanding credit and debit cards, not being able to wait. It's not a need, it's a want. I can wait a couple months until I get my next paycheck. I don't need to buy something right now. So financial management would be my main concern, but as you mentioned, all the others, the art and music are very important too. So yes, I would put up a fight about that.
I think the district voters would tell us at some point if we're spending too much money, but me personally, like, I can't envision a school district that only has reading, writing, and arithmetic. Like, we're also talking about, potential for school choice down the road. How can we have students come to our school districts if we're gonna cut all of those programs? What we're trying to do is make ourselves as well-rounded as possible. Again, I don't wanna get too negative, but that House bill, 283, that talks about cutting civics as one of the programs. They just instituted a requirement to pass a citizenship test at the high school. You're going to require a test at high school students, but you're going to eliminate the program that they use to actually pass it. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't think we can be a school that offers a barrier. I wouldn't want my kid to go to that school.
Those programs, those additional programs, that's like the heart of education. You'd be doing a great disservice to our students and to our community if our school district cut those programs. It's important to keep them there, and as a school board member, I would fight for that if that ever came down the line and was being forced upon our district. Like I said, I've got 3 kids in this district. Their education is very important to me, and I'm an advocate for keeping all of those additional programs in our school.
All right, if you've seen my videos, at the very end of every video, and there's a little thing that comes up that says knowledge is power. I truly believe in that, and the only way you're gonna have a society that is ready for the future is by giving them the opportunity to take as many classes as possible that expands their knowledge, not just in the basics. If you have a society that only does the basics, you're going to be struggling in the future. It might be beneficial in the moment, but 10, 20 years down the road, you're going to see the impact. So I believe, we should change the schedule to offer more classes for the students at the high school. It's something that we should keep in our school district, and I believe it's pretty well understood from everybody that we want our kids learning as much as possible, having opportunities that shouldn't be taken away from them, especially when it comes to learning.
Yes.
Education funding accounts. Sean, you said that one of the things that you wanted to do was to create PR. I think it was you, right? You said PR and transparency. I truly believe that everything we're talking about wanting better education, is because there isn't enough funding. And I think, I'm not an expert on education, the funding accounts, but I believe that it's taking money away from our public schools. And I think that there has to be an education of the citizens of our communities to say, this is what an education funding account is, and this is why our schools aren't getting the money that they need. Now, I may be off base with that, but I'd like to, I guess I am asking you, would you support, all of you support, trying to engage the community in education about how our schools are funded at a state level? Because I just don't think people know.
Yes, I would love that, and I would love as a board member to hold monthly meetings in which people can come in and learn about the funding process. Because last November there was actually a conference about the New Hampshire Fiscal Institute that actually covered how funding is done for the education here in New Hampshire, and they actually gave us a sheet that breaks down the value of every student that you lose every time someone leaves. And that is something that I think people do not understand. So when I say, yeah, we lost 30 some students, you're potentially looking at over, $300,000 that you're missing for funding because there's a formula if this and that happens, that if we're not trying to provide and listen to the teachers and the students and the parents, the concerns that they have, and we keep going with this blind mindset of not listening, we're gonna keep losing students.
I agree that we need to look at our student population and make sure that we're doing the best we can to keep students in our district. When they leave, that money goes elsewhere. Also, as I touched on points earlier, as a rural community, I think currently we're missing out on some resources and opportunities that are available to communities like ours and also Belmont. Our board needs to advocate also at a state level. We need to be educated in what's happening. We need to pay attention to what's going on, and we need to make the best decisions for our community based on our student population. And we need to figure out how to keep that population here. So yes, I think we need to stay educated about that.
So I think the question was, do we support educating the community to know what's going on as far as that example? And I'm joking here, but I would be looking for you to help us figure out how to get people to show up, because that's the hardest thing to have. Like, we've had sessions at the high school, and Polly can speak to this, at a grading system, big topic, and we have like 10 families show up. And it's like, is it a big topic? Because we don't get anybody to show up. So I think part of the problem we have is just, again, I'm going to joke here, but we have a controversial topic to lure people in, and then we use that opportunity to educate them on topics, because that's one of our biggest issues, is just trying to get that community involved in. And I am more than happy to hear any ideas on how to do that.
As a property owner who has not been involved in the schools, when I get my property tax, it's like, oh my God. And to find out more about the schools and all the great stuff they are doing, that would really make a huge difference when we're paying our taxes. I would love to see more companies around here involved. Internships with the companies giving donations. We have 2 sons, and when our 2 sons did their Eagle projects, we got donations from different companies to help them complete their projects that they had decided to do. He's not ready for bed yet. Maybe in a couple hours. But I would love to see the internships, having the students go to companies and help the companies out who are always looking for more employees. So it's definitely a possibility of getting more community involvement.
All right, we're going to take one more question.
Right here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Bob Steenson. Kate, you mentioned alternate funding sources. Edgar alluded to the fact that we may or may not be using all the resources available to us to address the costs of the school, and kind of each of you may have touched on this, but I'd like to hear something a bit more specific than that, because I can tell you that internships and public-private partnerships are great ideas. Grants are great ideas, but you cannot operate an entity, a school district, a town, or a business on grant funding, on one-time funding, or on anything other than a steady revenue stream, right? We have to make payroll. The selectmen signed a $500,000 check last night or Monday night in order for the school district bill. So I like your thoughts, but I don't understand how they would relate to actually the operation of the district. So if you have, love to hear it, but I think you probably should be a bit more specific about what you mean when you say that and what those sources might actually be. Because it's not like anyone's going to turn them down if they're there.
So one example that I can give is we've got a large capital improvements project coming up. We're going to have to replace an HVAC system. We've got money in this community. We can partner with our local businesses. And this is not, I'm not just talking about Canterbury. And as I mentioned before, we're a rural community, so there are programs out there that are available to us and available to our district that we can look at. Grant funding is definitely available for things like the HVAC system. You need to look at partnerships within the community. Look at our nonprofits in our community. Can we partner with businesses without adding leases or other commitments? We need to get creative about our funding. And there are dollars out there for projects like this. And granted, yes, you cannot pull in all of the money without those federal dollars, without the state dollars, but we can look at other ways to supplement that.
I would only point out, you should know that the school board and the school administrative office is already pretty aggressive about grant hunting, and several of us in this room wrote our letters of support today for a grant for the HVAC project that's going to Senator Shaheen. So I understand all that, appreciate it. All good ideas. I don't understand, but I don't know how that falls into the context of actually operating the district and how it affects the tax rate. Great for a specific project.
Or do you want me to?
No, I don't need that. Sorry.
Can I say
I'll shut up
something?
now.
Sure. Regarding funding. One thing that I'm really concerned here in the coming future is you have a lot of school districts around the state that have been negligent in their administrative and development of their budget. That now you see a lot of talk of collaborative. Okay, for example, Concord here next year, just in benefits and pay, their budget's going to go up by $2 million. So there's a lot of talk about collaborative work. Is joined together in an attempt to, increase the pool. So I think we should be really careful about getting to these collaborative agreements in which it can have a big impact on our classes, because obviously $3 million we'll get a chunk of that we have to increase our taxes to cover. So I'm really concerned, and that's why one of the reasons that I'm running, because this hunting by the other districts that have failed to temper the increases, that they're out there hunting for the districts that are willing to come in.
So I don't think I have a good answer for you, and I will be the first to admit I don't know all the grant opportunities that are out there. It all sounds great, but I don't know if there's much out there, where it's at, how much it's going to bring in. I will say, just real briefly, I had a conversation with somebody last night after the Belmont Candidates night from the, who works closely with the town, and they were talking about the grants they're looking for. They have trouble within the town of Belmont with people that have no time to do the grant work and research. I'm sure we have that problem in our school district, and we're having people do the work that don't necessarily have the time. It wasn't in their original job description. And one of the things we talked about very briefly, is there an opportunity for us to create a half a position that the school district pays for, a half a position the town pays for? Maybe you break it up into thirds and have a system as well. But can we dedicate somebody and have that position shared to help all the different areas? Because it all sounds great until you put that on somebody to say it's your job to help find this money, and when you don't find it, people are looking at you saying, why did you find it? That's not necessarily fair to them either.
All right. Wow. Can I say some questions? Jim, can I say one thing?
Yes.
So personally, I am a professional grant writer. I'm Kate's husband. To answer your question, I ran a nonprofit down in North Carolina that went from, that was all grant funded, that went from 2 counties to 12 counties. So the funding is there. I also have worked with Mr. Kersey on that CDS application, helping them out there. So the funding is out there. It's just a matter of going after it and identifying what can be funded to cover positions, to cover equipment, and what can't be, and going after it. We are in a very big transition with the grants, but that happens every 4 years or every time there's a new administration. So I believe that the funding will be out there again within the next 6 months to go after stuff.
Well, thank you for that. And again, thank you for all the great questions and great panel, and good luck to you all. And now we'll have the town candidate. So anybody who is running for a town office, if you can come up to the stage. You're going to be first, Calvin. So it's going to be Calvin, then Sam, then Al, then me, then Josh Gordon, and Brendan. It's probably good for starting. Okay, so come on. Well, we'll start with this one. Okay. So we don't want to keep you forever, but obviously it's up to the body to decide by walking out if it really had. But anyway, we got through the competitive part. Again, none of us are running with opposition. So I think if we can each spend maybe 2 minutes talking about the position, and if you're not in it currently, what you have in mind for it. You know enough about it. You read as much as you can. Yes, you can have a little more time.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm Calvin Klein. I prepared a speech, but it's 8:20. So most of you are pretty aware of who I am. I've been here the past 3-4 years running for this, and maybe you'll eventually win. I don't know. It happens. But the gist of this is, I moved this community 11 years ago. I feel like I've been a pretty integral part of it and forced myself into many positions and many roles. I like the community, I believe in the community, and I know the power of the community. I've been on the budget committee, the zoning board, the school general committee, the second iteration. I'm on the, what am I on now? The New Hampshire Amateur Hockey Association. I'm the disabled rep. I try to do a lot. I try to cover as many points as I can. And I feel to be a good leader, you kind of have to be spread out. You can't be focused on one thing. Selectman is one of those positions where you don't just do one thing. You don't just tell somebody this, you don't just do that. You have to be all-encompassing. You have to listen to people. You have to be able to interact. You have to listen to other perspectives and point of views. Yes, I'm a very opinionated person, but I'm also very open to listening to other people. I'm very amenable to understanding that what benefits me is not necessarily the best thing. You have to benefit the town, and you have to look at the town now, the town where it was and where the town is going to be. And I think I can really contribute to that, and I hope I can. So I thank you all for coming out tonight, and I'll keep it brief.
And if you want to mention both of yours, I'll do both, all three.
Hello, my name is Sam Paps. This is my 6th year as town clerk tax collector of Canterbury. I was raised in Canterbury. I graduated from Belmont High School. I came back after college, and I'm glad to be here and be of service to my community. The town clerk tax collector is a dual position, so we've heard a lot about taxation, we've heard a lot about how budgets are made and all of that, and I'm the one who actually collects, and I'm the one who accounts for said taxes to turn them back over to the selectmen. So I am working with the selectmen, I'm working with the treasurer, I'm working with the moderator, I'm working with the supervisors, and I'm working with different entities of different parts of our town government to make everything run. I enjoy this position because it is always changing and there's always something to keep up with. And as cemetery trustee,
I'm also running for a 3-year term as a cemetery trustee. Is interested in overlap of fulfilling state statutes for the current needs of current residents. And also we have a, also working to preserve the past legacies of former residents. The town of Canterbury has over 30 family cemeteries that the trustees monitor, and 3 town-owned cemeteries that we maintain annually. The Board of Elected Trustees continues to watch many families elect for traditional congregational burial model in a cemetery. And 2024, we had an expansion that I'm sure that you heard about last year's town meeting, you'll hear about again this year's town meeting, that we were able to put graves that hopefully are going to last us for another 100 years. So that was last year, and we're going to be selling them coming up this spring. So if you have a need, come and see your cemetery trustees.
By ballot order.
And I would like to thank all of you coming tonight. This is a wonderful turnout. Okay.
Like we don't know.
Being your town treasurer has given me the pleasure to serve this community. And I am a retired math teacher, and math is my superpower. I work with some wonderful people, Sam being one, Mary Hoffman, who's the accounting clerk, and Jesse Scanlon. All of those people get involved in the work that I do, and I get involved with the work that they do. I'll make this relatively quick, but I handle all the cash that comes into this town, sign checks that need to be done to pay bills, and also do reconciliations, which is done each and every month, and work with Mary to make all those work. And that would be it, and I love doing this job.
So neat to see my name on. I'm Jim Miller, town moderator. I am a volunteer. I do get free pizza on election night, which is really appreciated. And we get, like wraps and salads at lunchtime and snacks I would never buy myself, which are really tasty. The role of the moderator, I used to think on election day, you came in, moderator was sitting behind the voting box, saying, hi, how you doing? And then you leave, you voted, you're done. And then at town meeting, you stand up and do a routine for, as long as it lasts. It's so much harder than that. There's a lot of education that goes on from the state. In fact, we have a retreat tomorrow that runs from 9 to 4. And we just had an online thing a couple weeks ago. This year in particular, there are a lot of laws that are being proposed and discussed in committee that affect not only the job of moderators and clerks, but the whole election process. There's a lot of sense of loss of trust in election officials. New Hampshire doesn't generally make the national news. You hear about big districts and big cities out there that people disputed whether the elections were fair or whatever. I can tell you elections in this state, and particularly in this town and this district, are run extremely well. We have a group of volunteers. We have redundant systems for counting ballots, for checking ballots. We test the machine that tabulates ballots 4 different ways to make sure that any ballot that's stuck in will be counted. Again, it's a pretty careful process. There are a number of new rules that are affecting our process even next Tuesday. And so there's a lot to keep up with. In that regard, there's a bit of stress to it. It has been an exciting bit of stress. But last year was a lot of elections, and they were all kind of high-profile elections, I think. And so I am running, but this will be the last time that I'll be running. Partly for personal reasons and partly just, it's just someone else is a good shot at keeping track of everything because it's so much changes. Anyway, but I do enjoy the thrill of the chase and seeing so many people I don't know on election day. It's kind of cool. Not that I can remember any of the names, but it's kind of fun. So anyway, that's what I do. Tiffany, you want to come up? Is anybody else who's running still sitting out there? I know some people couldn't make it tonight, so. Okay.
I'm Joshua Gordon. I live in Canterbury. I've been since 2006. I'm at the northeast end of town. I'm running for the planning board. I've been on the planning board for about 10 years now. I really like Canterbury, and I'd like to continue being on the planning board. And I think the idea is to try to ensure that it stays a wonderful community. It's evolving though, and facing increasing development pressure, probably because it's a really attractive community. And I think it's important that our ordinances reflect, the town values and what we see on all the outreach we get is that everyone wants Canterbury to stay a rural, maintain its rural character. And so I don't really seek to change anything. I see myself more as a steward. And what the planning board does is zoning, and I believe in zoning. I think it's a good thing, but it's really a hard balance, to maintain the character, balance with private property rights, and increase the commercial development to help with the tax base, more housing to address the housing problems, and balancing these things is really difficult. And I just try to manage those things reasonably for everyone, for the developers and the homeowners and new people in the community. So thank you for the input you both on.
You have to ask the organizers.
I'm Tiffany Brown. I run for the trustee of the town trust fund. I have been in this position since I believe 2013 or so. I've lived in Canterbury since 2001. Running again just because it's very interesting. It's important, obviously, as a taxpayer, to be involved with ensuring that our trust funds are invested prudently and that we're maximizing our income in a safe, responsible manner. We use the NHPDIP, which is the investment pool, to make sure that our money is being invested responsibly. We review the returns quarterly to be sure that that we are meeting what we are tasked to do. It's important, obviously, to be sure that the funds are expended in accordance with the definition of a trust. Some are expendable, some of them are not expendable, and to make sure that we are making sure that these are all done legally and responsibly. I've learned a lot as I've done this. My full-time job is in healthcare finance, so this is a completely different animal, but very challenging and interesting to learn about all that goes into investing and making sure that that's done responsibly.
So we're a bit past 8:30. I leave it up to you folks if you want to ask burning questions. We're not going to get into all of the warrant articles. And if you have a question for one of the candidates, if I see a lot of heads sort of saying, no, I want to go home, then you can corner them when we start putting chairs away. I do want to add a couple of things. One is, please vote on Tuesday, because we're going to be here all day. And we don't get to eat pizza until the end of the night. If you do have a strange desire to learn more and decide to run for moderator in a couple of years, ask me anytime. It's a great bunch, and we have a good camaraderie of moderators around the state and good support from the Secretary of State's office. Judy has one last thing.
One last question. Sam, as a cemetery trustee, in the new section, are the plots gonna cost more?
No. People are dying to get into that.
Just in case.
Sorry, I had to do it. All right. Well, thank you again for coming. This has been terrific, and I think we all learned a lot. So have a good night. Be safe out there.
Thank you, one and all.